Got a minute or two? We have a way to make it not okay. Welcome to Sinister Minutes. I'm your host, writer and storyteller, Kurt Homer. Next to me is the master of macabre musical musings, the maestro of mood, Tim Parker. Together, let us take you on a journey into the dark heart of disturbing. Sinister Minutes. It's not okay. Sinister Minutes features tales that include disturbing content. That's intentional, because like the podcast itself, the creators here at Sinister Minutes are really not okay. Content featured on this podcast may include descriptions of abuse, addiction, alcohol, blood, bodily fluids, pundits, bones, bullying, burning, cancer, cannibalism, cheating, clones, confinement, control, cults, death, decapitation, depression, diet, divorce, domestic abuse, drowning, dying, eating disorders, epidemics, experimentation, family conflict, fear, fighting, fire, gaslighting, ghosts, gore, guns, harassment, hate crime, hazing, homelessness, homicide, hospitalization, hostage situations, hostile work environments, illness, incarceration, infidelity, injury, institutionalization, kidnapping, manipulation, medical procedures, memory problems, mental health issues, military service, misogyny, murder, mutilation, needles, nightmares, nudity, pain, panic attacks, paralysis, physical abuse, pornography, physical assault, police brutality, poverty, profanity, religion, robbery, scars, screaming, self-harm, smoking, hate, spider, stabbing, stalking, starvation, substance abuse, suicide, terrorism, drugs, torture, victim blaming, violence, war, weapons, weather, and maybe, just maybe, witches.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sinister Minutes podcast. Thank you, as always, for listening, for telling your friends and family, and for giving us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You really are the best fans a podcast could ever hope to have. We're getting new episodes out to you every other Friday because you lovely people continue to inspire us to greater acts of demented creativity. As always, we'd love to hear from you, so look for us on Facebook under Sinister Minutes or just reach out to us via sinisterminutes@gmail.com. Today's episode of Sinister Minutes is the conclusion of a 3-part series. If you didn't already listen to parts 1 and 2, congratulations! You get to listen to all 3 parts at once. Unlike those poor souls who waited a month to get to the ending. If you did wait the month and listen to the episodes as we dropped them, congratulations! Your patience will be richly rewarded. Of course it will. Don't ask me how. No, I'm not going to tell you. Just trust me. In case you're just joining us, Beautiful tells the tale of a young woman who invokes Freya, Norse goddess of love and war, sex and death, sorcery and beauty, and finds herself amidst a struggle between two ancient enemies. Last time...
I don't like games, Freya rose. Do not try my patience any further. What you asked for, it's nothing you wanted. I watched you today doing all you could to hide my gift. Look, I'm just not... Freya closed the distance between them in a flash. What is it you really want? She's a 3-year-old girl in a 30-year-old body, and more precious to me than anyone and anything in the world. And that evil bastard took her. Let there be no doubt, I want my property back, but more than that, I really despise trolls, especially the kind who prey on innocent women.
The journey concludes today with a friendly visit between a goddess and a giant, in which they discuss old times and make plans for the future. Pleasant sounding, isn't it? Don't worry, we're not about to bore you with anything pleasant, because pleasant outcomes are only okay at best. And if there's one thing for certain, we are definitely not okay.
Beautiful. Written and narrated by Kurt Holman. Part 3. Emma snapped awake to the jarring scream of the ringtone. She fumbled to pick it up from the nightstand and stared at the dark screen. Realizing her mistake, she picked up the other phone, the one he had given her. "Hello?" she said as she brought it up to her ear. "Well?" he replied, his voice a low rumble. Emma shivered, chilled even beneath the heavy quilt on her bed. You were right. Her earlier conversation with Freya came back to her. She wants it back. Good. Bring her to the office. Noon on Friday. Let me talk to my sister. The disconnect sounded as loud as a rifle shot. Bastard. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, then opened them extra wide. Forcing the last vestiges of sleep from her weary mind, she played the summoning song. With scant minutes left of Friday morning, Emma entered the dark office alone. She shivered, the cold stabbing into her, more brutal than ever before. Like the last meeting, the spotlight clicked on, but she was ready with one hand shielding her eyes. Well? His voice thundered from the darkness. Where is she? In the hallway, said Emma. Where's Mia? Close enough, he replied, although I've had second thoughts about returning her. What? Avoiding the light, Emma glared into the darkness. You can't. You tried to cross me. The deep bass of his voice rattled furniture throughout the dark room. Emma clenched her fists, trying to hide the shudder that arose from more than the temperature. What do you mean? He chuckled, a low rumble that shook her bones. I told you before, I hear everything. Only when she had his phone nearby. I did nothing to... You told her the nature of our arrangement. Told her things about me. I didn't... Perhaps your beautiful sister might stay with me a while longer. She might prove entertaining. You evil fucking shit stain, Emma ranged into the dark. I'll hunt you down and kill you myself if... His laughter rumbled the room once more. You'll do what exactly? Never fear, little one. I have no further use for that stupid girl. I will return her to you. The stupid girl label stung, but what had followed were the words Emma had been waiting to hear. Swear it. Excuse me. He sounded perturbed, although he'd certainly heard that part of the conversation as he'd been meant to. It had to be part of his manipulation act. Swear to me. Emma shook with rage, but held to the script. Swear an oath that you will return Mia to me once the lady is here in your office. I hardly think. Swear it, or the deal is off. His words felt colder than the air in the room. You are in no position to... He trailed off, and when he spoke again, he had regained his composure. Yes, that whole arrangement you and her cooked up. It will not work, you know. Freya had warned her he'd pretend to know more than he did. Swear it. Of course. His voice was sweetness covering something fetid. I swear upon my honor that I will return your sister to you free of physical harm upon the lady willingly entering into this room and meeting with me. Swear that you'll allow both of us to leave with no further obligation to you. He grunted. Do not try my patience. I still hold your sister. And the one you want remains outside. I could... Very well. I swear that I will allow both you and your sister to leave this place, and that you will be free of further obligation to me. I do this in exchange for the lady meeting with me and allowing me to place a binding of my choice upon her. Emma narrowed her gaze. There was no mention of a binding. There was no mention of oaths either. You have requested conditions, and I have added my own. With each word, his voice dropped to a deeper growl. Do you agree? I need to confer. Very well, but do not waste time. Emma stepped outside the office door, the icy sweat that had been building at her neck now running freely down her back. The shrouded figure stood just outside the door where Emma had watched her materialize earlier. Anyone choosing to step into the hallway would have been startled to see the figure in the floor-length black cloak, the huge hood pulled over her head. But then no one else ever walked the hallway of the 5th floor. Emma held up a hand to maintain silence, then pulled the burner phone from her pocket and powered it down. The hood swung back and forth. Either the phone would continue to capture everything, even with the power apparently switched off, or he'd set up some other means of capturing their conversation in the hallway. Either way, they would play their roles. He wants to bind you, Emma said. Did he swear the oath? Said the muffled voice beneath the hood. Emma nodded. The tingle in her ears told her the woman's voice was audible. Then let us go. The hooded figure turned toward the entrance. He may place his binding upon me. Are you sure? Asked Emma. One beautiful, well-manicured hand emerged from beneath the cloak and pointed toward the door. The two of them stepped inside the frigid office, and the door swung shut behind them. The spotlight and even the flickering monitors had been switched off, leaving them in pitch black. The cloaked woman spoke. Only a truly ugly troll shrouds himself in darkness. Emma could see neither of them, but palpable tension permeated the air. Troll? Hardly. He chuckled, the sound grating on Emma's ears. I've heard of your sharp tongue. The position of his voice shifted as he spoke, at first coming from in front of them, then moving to emanate from off to one side. I look forward to grinding down that sharp and beautiful wit in the many years we will spend together. "Be careful what you wish for," she replied. "Did your mother never teach you that, or was she too focused on trying to smother you in your crib?" "Enough," he said, and the spotlight snapped on, momentarily blinding Emma. "Show me the beauty who comes to meet me." Emma turned away from the full intensity of the light and watched with no small fascination as the woman pulled back her hood. The icy chill of the room seemed to dissipate in the warmth of that beautiful face, the mane of strawberry blonde hair. Emma stared, open-mouthed. Freya had seemed agreeable to everything she'd suggested, to masking her beauty using non-magical methods. Yet here she stood, facing the light, her beauty in no way diminished. Freya pulled the hood back up, covering herself. "Bind her hands with this." He tossed a silken cord toward Emma. She picked it up and ran it through her fingers. It felt no thicker than a thread, barely strong enough to hold itself together. Emma stepped in Freya's direction. "Not so fast," said Freya, one hand raised. "You have not yet paid my price." "I swore an oath," he replied, "to release this human and her sister once the binding is placed on you." Emma prayed that he would keep his word. Freya had explained the power of an oath to her, but it sounded like a quaint custom, something from another time, another culture. Nonetheless, she had nothing else on which to hang her hopes. "What of your oath to me?" replied Freya. "What of my necklace?" "You do prize that little trinket. Does it perhaps remind you of the filthy dwarves who you—" "Where is it?" she snapped. "Once you are bound, I swear upon my honor that I will place the necklace called Brisingamen around your lovely throat myself." "Very well, then." The hooded figure held her hands out, and Emma wound the cord around them loosely, tying the ends in a simple shoelace bow. "What are you doing?" whispered Emma. The hooded figure gave no indication that she had heard. "You have served your purpose," the deep voice said, "and I shall be busy with what you have delivered to me. Take the simpleton and go." "Emmy?" said a small voice. "Mia?" Emma turned, her eyes moist. Mia stood at the edge of the spotlight's illumination. Her long blonde hair hung tangled and matted, and dark circles beneath her eyes merged with the dirty smudges on her cheeks. She looked like a rag doll that had been tossed under the bed and forgotten about for weeks and months. In 2 strides, Emma took her sister into her arms. Mia began to cry, her weeping turning to racking sobs. For her sister's sake, Emma choked back her own tears. "Now," he said, "it is time to enjoy my new pet. Don't bother trying to loosen your bonds. That cord was crafted by a clever dwarf. No doubt one left envious by what you paid his brothers for a mere trinket." Mia's sobs continued, and Emma looked over her shoulder toward the door. It was over. She needed to nudge her sister in the right direction, and the two of them could slip away in the darkness, become invisible once more. Walking backwards, she guided Mia as though leading her in a dance, then looked up from her sister's embrace. The cloaked woman, still in the spotlight, pulled at her bonds. The simple knot Emma had tied had transformed into something impossible, the cord wrapping and constricting around her arms like a python squeezing a rat. Emma took another step back toward the door, away from the light. The room grew colder, an arctic chill. Her mind screamed to take Mia and run, fast and far away from any more dealings in the business of gods and giants. Another step back, and she saw his hands emerge from the darkness, huge, misshapen, hairy things. Bulbous knuckles cracked loudly as 2 long, dirty index fingers caught the neckline of the hood. "My necklace," said the hooded figure. He grunted, and the large hands disappeared once more into the darkness. The woman struggled, as if trying to reach something at her waistline. Emma saw it then. A single thread, out of place in an otherwise flawless fabric of the hooded cloak. And she understood. A trick borrowed from the face changers of the Chinese opera. A gentle pull on the cord would slip a mask into place. Emma had achieved her goals. Mia was safe, and he'd made an oath not to come after them. They'd return to the apartment, she'd tuck Mia into bed, and then sit with her all night. Tomorrow they'd talk and cry together. Healing could begin, steps towards normal. She needed only to walk away, to take Mia and walk out the door, to leave behind the conflicts of ancient beings, to never look back. She couldn't do it. Emma released her grip on Mia, took a step back, and held a single finger upright before her lips. She turned and moved towards Freya, toward the light. "Why are you still here?" boomed his voice from out of the darkness, the already frigid temperature dropping further still. Emma ignored him and closed the distance. She brushed the thread into the bound woman's hands, give her the control she needed. "What's this?" he thundered, and a heavy blow caught Emma across the cheek. Thrown back, she lost her balance and crashed to the floor. "Emmy!" Mia crouched beside her and touched her cheek. "Emmy hurt!" "No more games." A giant hand appeared in the spotlight, grasped the loose thread between thumb and forefinger, and yanked it from the cloak. She'd failed. Freya sat bound and helpless, the ace in her sleeve torn away. Emma had been so focused on getting the cord into the goddess's hand that she'd never considered her former employer's actions. She'd stepped into the spotlight, set aside the familiar power of her own invisibility, and had failed because of it. "No more interruptions," he said. "Let us continue where we left off, my bride." A shimmering golden chain appeared, dazzling in the spotlight, and huge fingers draped it around the woman's neck and connected the clasp. As though a switch had been flipped, the office lights turned on. Through eyes blurred by tears and pain, Emma saw him at last. He hunched over, in part because he was too tall to stand upright under an 8-foot ceiling, but also because it seemed his natural posture. Broad across chest and shoulders, his head sprouted from his torso with no semblance of a neck. A mass of protrusions covered his face, 3 especially large ones erupting from his forehead, resembling horns. Hair, thick and dark, sprouted in random patterns from the top of his head. His wide mouth smiled with crooked, dark-stained teeth. For one who had remained hidden in darkness for so long, he appeared not even to have noticed the lights, so focused was he on his prize. After clasping the necklace around her throat, he swept her hood back and gasped. A horrible, grating sound. "You!" he cried. "How?" "Yes," she said. "Oh, yes." Emma scrambled to her feet. Strawberry blonde hair had given way to raven black. The face before her was unfamiliar, but no less beautiful than Freya's. And then she turned, ever so slightly, and a scream caught in Emma's throat. One side of the woman's head, the half that faced Emma most directly, was pure beauty. The other side was bone and strips of blackened flesh. A long, dead corpse. Mia began to turn to see what her sister stared at. Emma grabbed her in a fierce bear hug and mashed her sister's head into her breast. "You," said the woman, "have bound me with the intention of taking me as your bride. How I look forward to, what did you say? The many years we shall have together." It had worked. Somehow, in spite of everything, the mask sat perfectly in place. And what a mask! The juncture of living beauty and rotting corpse rendered with precision craftsmanship. "Not you!" His voice trembled, a sound Emma had never thought she would hear. He took another step back. "Never you." "You disappoint me." The woman shook the cloak from her shoulders and it fell to the floor, leaving her clad only in the binding that tied her wrists. "Do you not desire me?" The dichotomy of her face carried through to her body, half smooth, beautiful, flawless skin. The other half torn from the grave, bits of flesh, bones clacking together, an impossibly upright horror. Emma could not help herself, could not stop staring. The figure before her exemplified the juncture between death and life, between decay and beauty. It was no mask. "I do not want you," he cried. "Oh, but you bargained for me," she said, "swore oaths that you might have me. Do you wish to break your oaths?" "I swore to release the humans," he cried. "I swore to return the necklace. I did not vow to have hell as my bride. I have been cheated." "Cheated?" She cocked her head. "Hardly. You bargained for a beautiful goddess, and I am beautiful to both the living and the dead. You bargained for a goddess of love. I love all who come to me. Love and death, they are closely intertwined. I offer both." She held up her bound hands. "I release you," he said. The cord slipped free as though it had never been tied. "Very well." She smiled, half sardonic grin and half skeletal rictus. "I am nothing if not patient, for one day we will be together again. Perhaps by then you'll understand the immeasurable beauty in death." Emma heard a sound as he slipped from the office. Was he sobbing? She relaxed her grips on Mia, but did not allow her sister to turn back and see the woman. "Freya?" The woman chuckled in response. Animated by some unseen force, the cloak rose from the heap on the floor and wrapped itself around her shoulders, the oversized hood once more shrouding that horrific visage. She turned to Emma. "Take care of your sister. It may be some time before she is ready to face the world again." Emma nodded, Mia buried in her shoulder. "Beauty takes many forms," said the shrouded figure. "It can make an average woman irresistible. It can also make one goddess seem much like another." Emma cocked her head. "What are you saying?" "One of the things are not always as they appear. The troll knew some magic, the nature of charms. His mistake was assuming that humans had no magic of their own." Mia made no attempt to turn around. Emma held her sister close and would hold her forever if she wished. "Your magic would not work. You suggested a mask," continued the woman, "and so a mask was crafted." Emma nodded, but it didn't work. The cord should have pulled the mask into place, but he saw the trick, the way he yanked it. With both hands the woman pulled the hood from her head. The demi-corpse, the exposed bone and rotted skin were replaced with strawberry blonde hair, a queer complexion, beautiful symmetry from left to right. The face Emma knew as Freya's. "Quite powerful, isn't it? Yet merely the changing of appearance." Emma stared. "Which one is the mask? And which is your true face?" The goddess shrugged. "Does it matter?" Sinister Minutes is presented by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. The musical score was composed and performed by Tim Parker. Our production team consists of Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. On behalf of everyone here at the Sinister Minutes podcast, namely Kurt Homan and Tim Parker, we thank you for listening, for joining us as we explore all the ways in which we are not okay. This audio program is copyright 2024 by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.